Hello, dear students. Here is Daljit Kaur, your painting teacher. I hope you all are very fine. So, today we are going to start our next chapter, that is chapter number 6, Indian Bronze. So, let's start with introduction. India has a fine legacy of terracotta, stone, and metal sculptures. First and foremost, being the dancing girl of Indus Valley, standing in Tribhanga pose, made centuries ago, which we already discussed in chapter number 2. The journey from the small statue of Indus Valley to Gupta Buddhas and further till Palwas and Cholas, which are very famous dynasties for Indian art, shows marvelous improvement in terms of skill, technique, raw material, and finishing touches. The Chola dynasty was the longest ruling Tamil dynasty in the parts of southern India until the 13th century AD. The period of imperial Cholas was an age of constant improvement and refinement in Dravidian art and architecture. The exquisite bronze sculptures proudly express the classic grace, perfect taste of those glorious days or time. In these, many fine figures of Shiva in various forms, Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi, Shiva's saints are among the existing specimens in the various museums of the world and in the temples of South India. Mostly these are the examples of southern Indian temples and the outer wall sculptures carved very beautifully. So next is the lost wax process, that is also known as cire perdue. In this technique, differed from region to region. It is also varies and depend upon a particular region to another. There are two main processes of lost wax casting, that is solid casting and hollow casting. First of all, solid casting, which is very similar to Indus Valley. In this, first step is to create the original model including all minute details. Then a raw material which is made by smoothly kneading beeswax and condylium, which is a white crystalline substance with a little oil. The next step is to coat this sculpture with clay made from termite hills and create a mold of a necessary thickness. This is totally depends upon the sculptor how much thickness he wants for his sculpture. Then the whole thing is dried and fired in an oven using cow dung cakes. The wax model melts and flows out while some of it vaporizes, leaving the mold empty. In this stage, the metal alloy of bronze is melted and poured into the empty clay mold. The metal is allowed to fill all the area and crevices. Crevices means a narrow opening. When it gets settled, hardened and cooled, the mold is broken off. The hardened bronze finger thus obtained is then cleaned and smoothened. After this much work, then fining and final details are added before polishing to complete the model. Hence, each bronze statue is unique and mold cannot be reused to create copies. Next is hollow casting, which is very different from solid casting. In hollow casting, we uses a clay core underneath the metal layer instead of whole metal. It is considered to be more traditional method than solid casting. The first step in this is constructing a clay core which is roughly the shape of the final cast image. First, we are making only a rough shape of a sculpture which we want to carve out. The next step is this clay core is covered by a layer of wax composed of pure beeswax resin from a special tree and nut oil. Then this wax is given form as a negative of the clay core and carved like the final figure with fine details and embellishments or a decorative details. Then further on, this wax is covered with layers of clay. This clay coat becomes the mold for the metal to be poured inside, replacing the wax. A few ducts means a tube, are created on the top layer to drain the wax when it melts while heating the clay. On the upper side of the mold, one tube-shaped hole is there to drain out the melted wax. This basic raw material for molten metal is generally brass scrap, which gets recycled to create the image of God. The liquid metal poured in hardens between the core and the inner surface of the mold. The metal flows into all area of the mold and takes the same shape as the wax. The outer layer of clay is then broken off. The metal icon is polished and finished as desired. Here we have done two techniques. First is solid casting, then hollow casting, which are totally different from each other. In solid casting, first we are making a rough sculpture from raw material, then coating of a termite hills clay, which is depend on a sculptor how much thickness he want. Then whole thing is dried out, and after dried out, then fired in an oven using cow dung cakes. Then wax model melts and flows out. After that, metal alloy of bronze poured into the empty mold. Then after dried, settled and cooled out, the outer layer broken off and the inner bronze sculpture is ready. And then finer details we can add it with our own imaginations. So next we are going to read very famous sculpture in the whole world, that is Nataraja. Medium bronze, period 12th century AD, dynasty Cholas, which is a very famous dynasty for Indian art. Location Tanjore district of Tamil Nadu. Collection National Museum, New Delhi. His description is an extraordinary sculpture of rich and diverse cultural heritage of India. It was developed in southern India by 9th and 10th century artists during the Chola period. It is in a series of beautiful bronze sculptures. This sculpture is basically taken out from a whole series. By the 12th century AD, it achieved canonical structure, and soon the Chola Nataraja became the supreme statement of Hindu art. About this French sculptor, Auguste Rodin had said, "There is a grace in elegance, but beyond grace there is perfection." Which means it is depicting the statue's beauty and perfection, that there is a grace in elegance, but perfection is more good, more important than grace, which artist has shown. The metal images meant for worship in temples are cast solid, including the large size of Nataraja image, except for the mount, which is cast hollow. In ancient Shilp Shastras, there was an exact set of measurements and shapes for the limbs and proportion of the divine figures. In Asian named book Shilp Shastra, which is known as Rules of Sculpture Making. In that book, in that Shastras, there are some sets described very beautifully, which is showing the measurements and the shapes for limbs and proportion of the body of the statues. Arms were to be long like stalks of bamboos, faces round like moon, and eyes shaped like almonds or the leaves of a lotus, which all are describing the facial features of these statues. These rules were followed so that gods are idealized and don't look like mundane beings. Mundane means ordinary people. The 5 metals used in the bronze alloy are said to represent earth, water, fire, air, and sky. That God provides the principal elements. In these sculptures, sculptors also using bronze, 5 types of bronze alloys, which represents of all 5 elements, that they are earth, water, fire, air, and sky, which differentiate these statues as a god images from ordinary peoples. These all features we already read about in Buddha sculptures in chapter 3. A marvelous example of balance, unity, rhythm, and harmony in the frozen action. Nataraj is shown in Tribhanga Mudra with the 4 hands represent the cardinal directions, that is east, west, north, and south. Surrounding Shiva, a circle of flames that is also known as Jwalamala, which is representing the whole universe of endless cycle of birth and death in a one frame. The cosmos of mass, time, and space. One flame is held in Shiva's left rear palm, the flame of destruction. This flame is representing and symbol of destruction, which is shown in the Shiva's left rear palm, which signifies a final destruction, that after this nothing is there of form out of which a new world will arise. Means a circle of life and death, birth and death. His left front arm across his chest has its hand pointing downwards in a Gajhast Mudra towards his elegantly upraised left foot in Bhujangatarista, stance signifying Tirobhava, which is creating liberation from illusion, and deliverance. Deliverance means free. His elegantly appraised left foot signifies the liberation from illusion and setting free. His right foot tramples a prostrate figure of dwarf Apsara who stands for ignorance. Here the dwarf you can see in the picture is the significance, is the symbol of ignorance, which is shown under the foot of Shiva. Shiva's right front head is raised in Abhay Mudra, which is also known as boon, giving boon. The fear not gestures of blessing, while his right rear hand holds a drum or damru with which he keeps the beat of dance. His front hand is showing that he is giving blessings and also saying that fear not, that I am with you. While his right rear hand holds a damru on that beat is producing the dance of Shiva. Snakes that symbolize the egotisms are seen curling around his arms, legs, and hair, which is braided and bejeweled. You can see in the picture the snakes are the symbolism of egotisms around his arms, legs, which is braided and bejeweled. That snakes are also carved with jewelry. The snake around the waist is for Kundalini, the Shakti or divine force that is believed to reside within everything. The crescent moon on his hair, held in a bun on the top of his head, with braids falling on the shoulder, complete the iconography along with the small image of Ganga on his head. There, the sculptor has also shown a crescent moon and a small image of Ganga. Also, the river goddess symbolizing the harsh fall from the heaven to the earth through Shiva's hair. Here, it is depicting a story that river goddess Ganga is symbolizing the harsh fall, heavy fall from heaven to earth through that Shiva's hairs. His matted locks are whirling as he dancing within an arc of flames. Matted means thick mass of hairs. While he is dancing, his curly hairs are also producing whirling fire flames. There is a skull on his head which stands for his conquest over death. This skull is showing that he has won over death. He has no fear of death. His third eye is symbolic of his omniscience, insight, and enlightenment. The whole idol rests on a lotus pedestal, the symbol of creative forces of the universe. Here, lotus pedestal also having a meaning, which is the creative forces of universe. The contrast of an aloof and peaceful face with an active body bearing the commotion of dance is completely divine and representing his neutrality of being in complete balance. The contrast of an aloof man, not friendly, and peaceful face with an acting body. Active body means he's all dancing on a damru beats, bearing the while he is dancing, but his inner side there is a lot of lots of noisy disturbance, lots of sorrow, which is showing in the complete balance. In the words of Ananda K. Kumaraswamy, Nataraj is the clearest image of the activity of God, which any art of religion can boast of. A more fluid and energetic representation of a moving figure than the dancing figure of Shiva can scarcely be found anywhere. According to Ananda K. Kumaraswamy, Nataraja is the only figure that is more energetic representative of a moving figure than the dancing figure of Shiva. There is not any other sculptures found like this sculpture. So this is all about our sixth chapter.